What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from Pink Tourmaline. And today's video is focusing on a gentleman that a lot of people have been recommending that I investigate. His name is Darius J. Wright. And I don't exactly know how I would describe his title because I'm still very new to him. But I guess the way I would sum it up thus far would be he is somebody that engages in OBEs on a regular, frequent basis. And I need to be careful with the terminology here because I know people have pointed out in the comments that I maybe was stating things incorrectly. Not astral projections, OBEs. We're going to talk about the difference between the two from another resource that I pulled. But I think according to him, and he's going to explain in a second, by traveling out of his body, but not staying in this within this realm, going into the astral, and kind of going to the other side, as he puts it, he's been able to ascertain a lot of information about this reality that we're in, the purpose of life, so on and so forth. And then he's essentially been relaying back all this information. So that's Darius in a nutshell. What I want to do in this video is go through, this is an old interview of Darius that I found online. And I think this is perfect because it's allowing me to get a basic understanding of where he's coming from and some of his perspectives and vantage points as I try to understand him a little bit better. And I think the way that I first came upon him is I found a video of him essentially dismissing this idea of us being in a reincarnation trap or a soul trap, which that theory was starting to resonate with me in some way, just hearing a lot of different sources talk about and explain it and explain the logic behind this theory. And he shut it down, basically just saying that that's not what he's been shown, number one, and number two, if you believe it to be a trap, then it is a trap. Essentially, this idea that your thoughts or your consciousness or your belief system will dictate that reality. And if you go in to death fearing that you're going to be trapped, then you very well may be trapped. And so I felt it was a bit dismissive to throw it off right away, especially when hearing a lot of other folks talk about this theory. But again, because so many people in the comments are such big fans of Darius, I wanted to dive in a little bit deeper and try and get a more thorough understanding of his positions and where he comes from. So we're going to step through a bunch of these little clips that I've gathered explaining his thoughts on myriad topics, and I'll respond after each one. I'm going to talk about my thoughts and what I think about his positions and positives. If I think of negatives, I'll say those too. I'm just going to be honest, not here to praise him or attack him, just trying to understand what he's talking about, because I know, like I said, he's getting a lot of people behind him. So, all right, first of all, how does he know what he knows, right? He seems to be this wealth of knowledge. Not saying he's not saying he is. I don't know. But he appears to be a wealth of knowledge. You ask him something, he's got an answer kind of for everything. How does he know everything that he knows? This is how he knows. Check this out.
For those people that don't know who I am and what I do, I specialize in out of body experiences. Now, I say out of body experiences because that's what people know it to be, but it's not necessarily what you think an out of body is. A lot of people, when they look at out of body experiences, they think of astral projection, and it has nothing to do with that. And I've stated before in some of the previous talks that I have with other people, is that when you compare an out of body state to an astral projection, it's like child's toys in comparison. An out of body state, the way that I do it, is no different from a near death experience, but it's a near death experience controlled. When you die, the soul leaves the body 100%, and you're fully conscious and present on the other side. That is accessing all things. It's accessing the records, the nature of reality, and what we really are. So when you shut down the body in a controlled state, it is no different from a near death. And what you access is no different from when you leave this realm entirely. And this is very scary for a lot of people when they do this, because shutting down the body to such an extreme state controlled feels like you're dying every single time. But what you get access to when you get rid of the fear is everything that I've stated already. You get access to records, the true nature of everything, because all is available to all souls here who have the willingness and desire to access.
So the first thing I want to state here is I know people jumped on me in the comments about conflating, I guess, OBEs with astral projection, but I wanted to point out that he kind of has his, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like he kind of has his own unique definition of OBEs because he's talking about an out of body experience, distinguishing it from an astral projection, but he's saying it specifically the way that he does it, where he's essentially taking his body to a death phase or a death position close to death or similar to death, like an NDE, and then he's going over. So he's saying, now this isn't like a typical astral projection where you're still more tied to your physical body. I think it's a greater level of detachment. Therefore, he is saying that he has a greater level of access to the inner workings of this dimension, dimensions beyond, and so on and so forth. I just wanted to point that out because when you actually look up the definition, I try to look at a bunch of different websites to get a decent definition and distinction between the two. I found this one. I think it's fairly good and it's in line with everything else that I've read, but it says, okay, our spiritual body merges with our mental emotional body for the astral travel, because astral travel, as opposed to an OBE, is the time of actually leaving this plane, the physical, and traveling to another higher or lower plane of existence. An OBE involves the mental emotional body and only occurs within the physical plane. But like, that's obviously not what Darius is describing, but that's typically what an OBE is, out of body experience. And then astral combines the mental emotional body and the spiritual body and occurs within the astral planes. And that's what my original understanding was. An astral projection is it's like a specific type of OBE where you go beyond the physical plane into the astral. So essentially you're traveling further, I guess, if you want to think about it that way. But I think what Darius is describing, he doesn't want to call it an astral projection, but maybe we'll call it like Darius's version of an OBE. He's going deeper than an astral projection, not staying within this plane. So it's kind of I feel like a personalized definition. So I just wanted to mention that right off the riff. But then the other thing that I don't want to say is alarming exactly, but it's the thing about I think the positions that Darius espouses, they seem to be solely from him. It's from his travels, and I guess the reason why he has a lot of unique perspectives, maybe not completely unique, right? There are definitely overlaps, which is what I'm always looking for here on this quest. But I think a lot of the things that you're going to see in some of these later clips that are really unique to Darius, I think he's saying that maybe he's only been able to access these things, or one of the very few people, because he's able to go so deep into these astral projections. And I guess that is the explanation as to why nobody else is seeing similar things. But and not that's an exaggeration, right? Not nobody. He does show things that he's experienced or witnessed that are in line with some different philosophies worldwide, ancient philosophies, ancient religions, things like that. So it's not in total isolation. But I guess the thing that I wonder about is if you contrast Darius's experiences to people that are engaging in remote viewing or these astral projections. Usually, I know that the strategies a lot of times are to have teams of remote viewers or teams of people engaging in astral projection. So you can sort of corroborate what the individuals are seeing and making sure that there's a high level of accuracy. I've heard people talk about with remote viewing, I know different, but they usually want to do this in teams to make sure they're not getting false hits or false positives. So I guess my initial hesitations with I think some of the things that are coming from Darius right now, just right off the bat, I'm still new to him, it would be that it seems it's solely his perspective that he's sharing, solely from his specific journeys. And I think it would be interesting to see other folks also share their overlaps, but also share the contrast, and maybe the truth lies somewhere in between, as opposed to just buying in 110% into everything specifically that Darius is saying. I'm just speaking my mind right now in terms of what my initial thoughts might be. And that also could explain why there's some things that Darius retrieves that are not in line with what other folks are seeing, whether you're talking about things that have been ascertained from the Monroe Institute or other things like that. That could be some of the reasons. Maybe there are some inaccuracies. Anyways, that's just a thought I wanted to throw out there. Okay, let's keep going. So now this is a pretty cool clip where Darius goes deep, but one of the things he talks about here is what is it like to leave the body in these deep OBEs, in these Darius OBEs, if you will, that he's going on. Check this out.
When you, like I stated before, when you leave your body, you are not, it's not a mystical airy-fairy thing. That's one of the biggest things that shocked the hell out of me when I left my body, and I continue to do it. I actually could do it controlled. I leave my body like if it's a bad month, it's twice a month, but it's typically every single week. And I can do it every single day, but that tends to fry out my central nervous system, right? Because your soul is connected through the central nervous system, the whole meridian system. And this is where it goes into the health of the body as well, because when you're accessing information, it's not that the soul cannot maintain all that information, but when you bring it within the body, it could fry it out, just like a computer. You download too much information all at once in the computer will start to bog down and get slow. It's the same thing with your physical body. So that's where the health is applied as well with us. But when you leave, right, it is more physical and it is more dense than having a physical body. Your soul is more physical than your physical body. And it's all the pleasures of physicality with no limitation. So when you're over on the other side, you could do as you wish, access all things, and you are still in physicality.
That's very interesting. I don't know how exactly those thoughts in terms of being denser and more physical when you're in your spirit body compares to what other people have found or explained. But I think that's a fascinating, interesting perspective or something that he's experienced. Okay. Now this is Darius on the idea of life purpose. Let's check this one out.
How does one find, let's say, life purpose? If some people didn't come here and want to come here, does someone have a life purpose? Do we all, or do we make that ourselves? Is there a concrete, real answer for that?
Yeah. So when before you have come in here, you've agreed to come in here, right? That's the memory that I've been shown of myself, even though people can't. Even myself, when I left, and many times that I've left, and I've been offered to stay there on the other side many times. And I knew that means that the physical body dies. That's the point of no return. And every single time my soul desires to come back, and not every soul desires to come back. Some people do leave, and that's completely fine. But there are certain things that your soul wants to do here, or it's the reason why you've come here to begin with. A lot of people think too, when you're over there, for some reason, you don't have the sense of emotion, anger, or expression, extreme expression. You do. That's the reason why a lot of souls have come here, just due to essentially irritation, yeah, of what was taking place. Now, when souls choose to experience something, and to answer the question, how do you find your path? It's easy to find your path when you start fully expressing yourself honestly and completely. And the reason why people don't do that, and when you really think about it, is because they're afraid of being judged. So when people cross over to the other side, you hear a lot of near death people cross over to the other side. The reason why they say they were bathed in unconditional love, it's not necessarily that they were bathed in unconditional love the way that they think. It's because they were not being judged for their soul expression. There is no judgment, because you cannot have unconditional love with a judgment. So when you go through your life here in trying to figure out your purpose and what you're supposed to do, it's tuning into your intuition, the thing that people shut down, the instinct of what feels good. Because what feels good, like you said before, well, why don't I just do something that feels bad naturally? Because naturally you're not tuning into your soul's fullest expression of who you are. Otherwise, that's why you feel different, right? So when you tune into that, you just do that, you'll start walking in a path of doing things that may not even make sense to you, but you're doing it based off your soul's integrity, walking in integrity. Yeah.
Okay, maybe there is a more detailed response somewhere in terms of answering this question of what is the purpose of life, but that didn't really feel like it came full circle. And maybe this is just a bad interview or not a bad interview, but like a incomplete portion of his full answer. But tell me what you guys think, right? Because if what I gather is correct, what I essentially heard was it's following your intuition. If you want to boil it down to the nuts and bolts, it was following your intuition. And then when you're following your intuition, it feels right. And then you're walking on your path. I think though, but it doesn't answer the larger question. Sure, maybe we come into this life to follow our intuition. But why? What's the larger picture? Especially if we're having multiple lives, or we're reincarnating. Is that and he also said, I think, or maybe it's another clip where he says, we agree to come here. Sure. I believe that as well right now. So, but what is the grand scheme of things? If he doesn't feel as though this is some sort of a reincarnation trap or a soul trap, that each incarnation there is some purpose, you follow your intuition, but how does that fit into the grander scale of things? Or does it fit into the grander scale of things? Is there something else going on in terms of stringing the multiple purposes of all our lives together? There's another point in this clip, in this interview, I'm not sure if I included it or not, where he does also say part of the reason we manifest here is to just like experience or feel. So how does that blend into this idea of just following your intuition? Is it just an experiential process to manifest here? So we just come here so we can have different experiences and feel these different realities? Is there an objective to that? Is there some forward progression that we're trying to experience? So I don't know, that answer didn't come full circle to me, but again, he may answer this in a more coherent, more complete way in another interview. And if that is the case, please let me know. But anyways, I thought it was cool because I want to show that in terms of, hey, at least he's trying to answer this big question, which is kind of the whole heart of this channel. Is all about finding the purpose of life. So, all right, this is a cool little clip. This is his thoughts on karma. It's funny, actually, he shares basically the same point of view as Jason Georgiani, that there's no such thing as karma, and his reason is actually great. And he's got this tremendous line here. I think it's in this video, in this clip right here, about unconditional love and judgment, and how the two are essentially they're essentially mutually exclusive.
So then, what about, or what to think of the concept of karma that we've derived?
No, there's no karma. You cannot have.
That's controversial now for people.
Yeah, I know.
I like the way you said it, though.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's and this is the thing, right? I'm not necessarily here to be liked. I'm just here to share the truth of what it is from the other side, and who that reaches, who it doesn't really matter to me, as long as it reaches the people that it's supposed to. Karma, no, there's no such thing as karma. That is a great way to put a soul into fear of constantly thinking that they're going to be looped forever, for eternity, all those things, right? You need to deal with this, deal with that. There is no judgment on the other side. The very fact of karma means that there's a judgment on the other side of some form. You are the only one that judges yourself. The unforgivable sin is a sin that you cannot forgive yourself for. And there's no one when you leave on the other side that is there to judge you for your actions or what you have done here. You judge yourself because you access all things again. You remember all things again. You're able to view your actions from your, you could say, higher perspective. And you are the ultimate judger. There's no karma or any of that stuff, which then is going to put you into eternal damnation and any.
I'm starting to agree with this perspective as well, for a number of reasons, many of which that Darius just stated. But the one thing that is, I am wondering about as I listen to him, is he's got like such certainty about everything. And I can understand having a strong opinion based off a lot of research, or even these OBE experiences or different things like that. But I guess, isn't there always a chance for all these folks? I not everybody necessarily speaks in 100% certain terms, but isn't there always a chance that these experiences or these perspectives that you're gathering from downloads could be tainted, or could be manipulated in a certain way? And so no matter who it is, no matter who's gathering the intelligence, even if you have a team of multiple people conducting remote viewing to gather intelligence or gather information, but still say, okay, but there is always a chance that this information is flawed, or it's being presented in a false light to me somehow, right? And that's, I guess, gives me a little bit of pause, a little bit of concern, just listening to this. It seems like this certainty in a lot of the things he's relaying. Now, that being said, I have not experienced what he's experienced. Maybe it's so powerful and profound when he's on the other side, and it's just so clear that everything he's seeing is truthful, that's why he has this high level of certainty. And that's why I feel so confident. There very well could be, like I said, I'm just explaining in real time some of the things that when I listen to him right now, again, I'm new to Darius, that are making me pause for a second and want to consider other perspectives that maybe don't fully match up or align wholeheartedly, like completely with everything he's talking about. Oh, no. Now here's the clip. This is the beautiful clip, right? It's exactly like he kind of gets around to, but here's where he states it specifically: unconditional plus love and judgment. Can those two exist? Check this out.
How could you have unconditional love with a judgment? Yeah, it's almost like you cannot have ultimate expression of freedom with a limitation, just like you cannot have unconditional love with a judgment. They go hand in hand. And
Right.
those are actually the unchangeable and unbreakable laws of the universe, which never change based off people's perceptions. People have a lot of perceptual truth, and that's what they're basing their reality on, based on their perception, which changes moment to moment. And even right now, the people that have listened thus far to this video, their perception would have changed just a fraction or a lot, doesn't matter. But the very fact that the perception has changed, their truth has changed. There are unbreakable and unchangeable things in this universe that will never change regardless of how you feel.
Pretty cool statement. And again, I don't know if that is exactly how everything works, but that resonates. That makes a lot of sense, that there would be some of these core essential truths. Maybe free will is one of those as well, that free will cannot be, it can be perhaps well, you might say, well, wait a minute, we get coerced and we get controlled in different ways and things like that in this life, but perhaps that could be a rule as well. And people say over and over that we have agreed to come into this life and play this role, and so on and so forth. So perhaps it's not, we think it's our free will being bent, but no, we already agreed to certain things. So that's why life doesn't always feel like it's going the way that in this moment we want it to go, but perhaps that's because of a pre-existing agreement. Okay, now here in this clip, he talks about all of this stuff: OBEs, NDEs, dreams, astral projections, and talks about it and breaks all of these down, compares and contrasts them. Check this out.
So a near-death experience and an out-of-body experience are like this. They are married together. Like I said, an out-of-body experience is a near-death experience controlled.
So again, and this is the way that he's describing them. I already showed you the difference and the way that it's described in other places, OBEs, but this is in his, I think, definition. Correct me if I'm wrong, if you folks are out there that are experts on the distinction, but yeah, so he's saying OBEs and NDEs, like the Darius version of OBEs, are almost the same as an NDE.
But the dream and astral, particularly the dream, typically and mostly you're accessing your dimensional space, your field. So this is where you go into, you're accessing your thought forms, potential timelines. This is why sometimes when you're having a dream, you could end up seeing potential in your close circle, like family, relatives, potential future events taking place. And sometimes people experience this and they're like, oh, I saw this and into the future. And then a week or the day prior, that takes place because you are accessing your thoughts and potential time events within the dream space. That's what dreams are accessing, right? But when you are out of your body, you're not only accessing your individual field, but you're accessing everybody's individual fields. You're accessing even more than that because you're accessing the realms, dimensional spaces, even outside the constructs, the records, right? So there is a difference of access of what you get depending on where you are. It's almost like, if you're only in the astral and dreaming space, you're just accessing your individual field stuff in dimensional spaces. And there is a totally bigger area of things that you could access, when you properly come out of the body.
So he's going into these deep out-of-body experiences, and therefore, I guess this is the explanation as to why he's accessing all of this very intricate information about the inner workings of this realm and beyond, and the universe and beyond the universe, because he's going so deep into these very specific types of OBEs that are similar to NDEs. So there it is. Now, this part's a little wild, okay? And he even says that. He's like, man, I'm probably going to be losing some people when I explain this. I've never seen this anywhere else. I'd be curious to... the one thing he does mention is the 12 dimensions that he's observed of this plane, and I guess that has been discussed and described in other ancient texts and religions, so there is some overlap there. But yeah, this is pretty wild, and he says some pretty different stuff about the moon that I haven't heard elsewhere. But if you guys have also heard other people talk about this, please let me know in the comments.
When people say that we live within a ball, that is true. But this place is immovable, it is fixed, and it does have a firmament above it and a dome. This is where you get the core. The earthly realm does have a core, but it actually is a projection of a map on the moon as well. I mean, this is where we're getting pretty deep in topics, which may lose a couple of people. Now, to even illustrate this even further, right, to give you not just metaphysical Darius's experiences from the other side, to show you here, this is a video, right? When people think of comets and shooting, some anyways, not all, but some comets, some shooting stars, you'll see that the stars are fixed within the firmament above us, right? And I'll play this video here. When you think that space is moving, that the stars were rotating in space, that's not true. And it's not how it's viewed on the other side. Everything, the stars are dimensional, are access points in dimensional spaces. This is where you even go into, this could go really deep, but as I said before, what people call the black sun, the core, is actually projecting a map on the moon of the earthly realm. And this is where you'll see here, you need to think about mirror as a projection. And when you flip the moon in reverse, you'll see that it holds an entire map of the realm that we live within, has all the continents, everything's there. And this is not just, like I said, I want to give you guys actual things that you could see visually and you could do for yourself. But when you're out of your body and you're accessing the other side, all this is available to you and all this is visible and seen for what it really is. I know a lot of people may not like to hear truth because it's harder for someone to tell you you've been lied to your entire life when truth is finally revealed to you. The moon is an entire mapping system of the realm that we live within, and also the realm that's pretty much cut off from us. There's other land masses. It's not just Australia, America, and all the continents that they tell you that is here. And you can access these when you're out of your body and see.
And it's not that I'm afraid of new information per se. Well, I guess maybe all of us have some innate fear to having our basic views of what things are being broken down and then having to be rebuilt. So yeah, sure, I guess in general. But I'm saying with respect to this information, it's not that I'm afraid of it. We're talking about the moon being a map and then this idea of the firmament and things like that and the stars being fixed. I just haven't heard it really before. And it's not like I'm coming from a super normative perspective where I'm like, what is he talking about? I'm only listening to what NASA provides or different things like that. Like, I'm very open, and in terms of hearing these different perspectives and narratives about the nature of reality and what is the true nature of reality. But I haven't heard anything like this from anybody else. So it feels a little jarring to me, and especially saying the stars are fixed. So I'd just be curious to know if there are more people that can corroborate these ideas, whether via these type of deep OBEs or maybe some combination of remote viewing or different things like that. I don't know. That's what I'd be curious to know more of. It feels really unique. And again, there is obviously the chance that he is privy to some information that is difficult or almost impossible for the rest of us to ascertain. Like, of course, we have to accept that possibility. But like I said, this is just where my head's at right now. Hearing this information is pretty wild. That's where I'm going to stop for the video today. Just a quick introduction and a brief exploration of some of the ideas and thoughts and philosophies of Darius J. Wright. And I'm going to check out more. I want to check out more. I'd love to check out more interviews that are broken up in with these nice timestamps where I can really look at his answers to some of these specific questions that I'd like to know a little bit more, get a little bit of a better understanding of his thoughts on our world, this reality, and things like that. Another thing he did say too, which I didn't include the clip, I think he said, once the soul is out of the body, or on the other side, maybe specifically on the other side, it cannot be manipulated. It can't be deceived. And I thought that was interesting because I used to think that, or want to believe that, let's say anyways. And especially when I was into a lot of the new age spiritual stuff, just focusing purely on NDEs. But then how do we reconcile that with, well, I mean, you can't, because they're just obviously completely opposed or in opposition to each other. But when you look at that in comparison to what David Icke is saying, or what some of these other folks that know, like the entire seeing the light and traveling up, that's all one giant manipulation. Like those are just two opposites. Multiple folks are saying that I've now listened to that those are manipulations that we can succumb to, plus the memory wipe and all this stuff. And it seems that Darius is on the other side saying, no, this is not the case. It's not going down like this, because that's impossible according to the paradigm that he's describing. We cannot be manipulated on the other side. So that's something that's interesting. Those two pretty much can't be reconciled. So I guess ultimately you have to go one way or the other. And I'm still figuring out, I suppose, where I sit with that issue and many others. But anyways, there's my quick surface level dive, I should say, into Darius J. Wright. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you think about some of these clips that I played. Do they properly showcase how Darius feels on all these topics, or are you out there saying, no, you haven't looked deep enough, or there's clips that you've missed that really explain where he's coming from? You should check this out. Or are some of the things that when you're watching these clips, do you have similar questions that I do? Or are you on the other side where you feel like there's a lot of holes in the things that Darius is saying? I'd love to know all of that. And I'd love for people to please point me into new directions to explore and learn about his philosophies that you think are worth investigating. And I will gladly do so. That's all I got for you guys today in this video. Thank you guys so much for joining. We'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.